Hello, my YouTube family. Today, we're diving into a critical topic: why Israel and Iran are enemies. This complex conflict is rooted in history, ideology, and power dynamics in the Middle East. Let's unravel what's behind this enduring hostility.
این غده سرطانی از هنگام آغاز مرحله‌ای رشد کرده.
He pledged, quote, "There will be no Israel in 25 years."
This is not just a pipeline. It connects two Israeli cities. But what's so interesting about it is that it used to be known as the Israeli-Iranian pipeline in the 1970s because the two states worked on it together to transport crude oil through Israel to Europe. But that is a thing of the past. Khamenei pledged there will be no Israel in 25 years. The October 2023 terror attack on Israel by Islamist terror group Hamas has put this conflict on a whole new level because Hamas is backed by Iran. Iran and Israel are among the biggest military powers in the Middle East, but they are very different. The Islamic Iranian regime denies Israel's right to exist, the only majority Jewish state in the world. But the conflict is about much more than Jews and Muslims. It's also about influence in the region, and about Israel's number one ally, the US. After Israel declared independence in 1948, Iran was actually among the first Muslim-majority countries that recognized the new state. So, what happened then? The Iranian Revolution in 1979 turned everything upside down when the Western-backed Shah regime was toppled. Ruhollah Khomeini, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, believed that it should be exported throughout the Middle East and the world. He saw Israel as part of the so-called West in the middle of the majority Muslim world as a problem. Ever since, the Iranian regime doesn't recognize Israel as a state, and leaders don't even mention its name. This is one of Tehran's oldest squares. In 2017, this clock was unveiled here, counting down to 2040 to the destruction of Israel, because that is part of the propaganda of the religious regime in Iran. The square is often the scene of protests like these, transporting the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel rhetoric of the Iranian authoritarian government. Iran has been using this rhetoric of destroying Israel, but we need to be careful distinguishing between rhetoric and reality. That was Merzad Borojerdi, who has written numerous books on Iranian society and politics, both in English and Farsi, so he really knows what he's talking about. The square we mentioned earlier, guess what? It's called Palestine Square for a reason. After Hamas's October attack on Israel, people in Iran protested here in support of the Palestinians, some even in support of terrorist group Hamas. But remember, Iran is an authoritarian state. So these protests might not reflect what people actually think, because we've seen in the past that protests have been orchestrated by the regime. It's important to understand that ever since the Iranian Revolution, the Iranian regime presented itself as a vocal supporter of the Palestinians. Why is that? We asked Abed Kanane, an expert on Arab-Israeli relations. They are using this issue in order to get recognition as a regional power in the Middle East. The way to understand Iranian foreign policy is that they claim the right to be, quote-unquote, the leader of the Muslim world. They try to formulate this sort of rhetorical campaign that can resonate with the average citizen in the streets of the Arab Muslim world, where they say, we are the defender of the weak, we are the defender of the Palestinians. Now, let's move beyond rhetoric. Iran's influence literally spills over its borders. This is what Iran calls the axis of resistance. You've already heard of the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which attacked Israel on October 7, 2023, and is deemed a terrorist organization by the US and the EU. Hamas is not the only group in the region that gets funding and arms from Iran. These so-called proxy armies include Islamic Jihad in Gaza and the West Bank, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Syrian Armed Forces, the Popular Mobilization Force in Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen. Backing Hamas gave Iran the opportunity to position itself as the leading supporter of the Palestinian cause in the Arab world. Just a reminder, most Muslims in the world are Sunni, including most Palestinian Muslims. So are most Muslims in Saudi Arabia, a big player in the region, and the Iranian regime's archenemy. Saudi Arabia and Iran actually compete for influence in the Middle East. Iran has a Shia majority, which is a different branch of Islam. Same goes for most Iranian proxies in the region, such as Hezbollah. This area in southern Lebanon is under the control of Islamist militant group Hezbollah, which is, like Hamas, backed by Iran. And then there are the Houthis, who operate mainly in Yemen. Just take a look at their slogan. It says here in red, "Death to America, death to Israel, curse on the Jews." Basically, the same chants that we hear some 3,000 kilometers away in Tehran. The hatred against Israel often goes hand in hand with hatred against the United States. So there is definitely a common ideology with the Iranian regime and political support for the Houthis. But Iran denies sending the group weapons. So there are several militias outside of Iran's borders that are backed by the Iranian regime. Some of them have played a role in the aftermath of the October 2023 attack on Israel. In an escalation of the decades-long hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel, Hezbollah fired missiles into Israel after the Hamas attacks, and Israel retaliated with airstrikes in Lebanon. Now let's shift to Israel's side. Take these two areas in Sudan and in Syria. Both were hit by airstrikes, one in 2009 and 2013. Israel is believed to be behind these strikes, and hundreds more in Syria targeting weapons to prevent them from reaching Iran's proxy armies, Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. There's another big and potentially deadly topic: nuclear weapons. The Iranian regime has repeatedly said its nuclear program is only to produce energy. But world powers such as the US, China, UK, and the EU don't believe them. And Israel doesn't believe them either. Iran lied about never having a nuclear weapons program. Israel was one of the biggest critics of the Iran nuclear deal. For Iran, its nuclear program is a way to put itself in a position of power in the Middle East. And Israel sees the Iranian nuclear program as threatening to its existence. Over the years, there have been many sabotage attacks. Take this nuclear facility in Natanz, where experts say an explosion in 2020 set back Iran's nuclear program by up to 2 years. Iran has blamed Israel for them, and Israeli officials have implicitly threatened to attack Iran's nuclear facilities. Israel's intelligence agency Mossad is also believed to have targeted Iranian nationals, including a series of assassinations of high-profile nuclear scientists, such as the father of Iran's nuclear program in 2020. Israel, however, has never officially admitted to it. So now we have a better understanding of why there's a conflict between Iran and Israel. Iran is using anti-Israel rhetoric to gain more power in the Middle East, and Israel is pushing back against Iran's proxies and influence. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what topic you'd like us to explore next. See you next time.